Michael Moore possesses power, maybe more than anyone else in the division. He has the highest knockout ratio of any of the heavyweight champions or contenders, KOing 28 of his 30 opponents on his undefeated record. His reputation as a devastating puncher with either hand, well deserved. But though the celebrations come often enough, it's his fists that have caused him as many problems outside the ring as they have for opponents in it, including a pending charge of aggravated assault for striking a police officer. He's tried to put his legal problems behind him now and concentrate on the task at hand, winning the heavyweight title. Michael has changed trainers and is working harder than ever before, honing his skills and getting into optimum shape as he awaits his chance at the crown. If he can dispatch Bone Crusher Smith today, he knows that the power he carries in either fist can bring him something he craves. The power that comes with being the heavyweight champion of the world. All right, let's go to the tail of the tape and check the numbers on these two fighters, and you're going to find all the big numbers are on the right side. They belong to Bone Crusher. The age, the weight, the height, and the reach. 14 years the senior of Michael Moore, but certainly Moore the up-and-comer of the two. The rules today, we are in New Jersey, so their state athletic commission rules will be on a 10-point must system. The 3 knockdown rule and the standing 8 is in effect. The fighter cannot be saved by the bell in any round, and the doctor in charge can indeed stop the fight at his discretion. And Frank Cappuccino, who's worked so many of our fights before, is the man in charge today. We await the bell. 25-year-old Michael Moore and 39-year-old Bone Crusher Smith. Certainly one of the great nicknames in boxing history, Bone Crusher. I asked him yesterday, who gave you that name? And he said, I did. There were an awful lot of Jim Smiths running around.
Yeah, and it was a tremendous move because I really think it's an attitude, it's attractiveness. You see on the left of your screen, Michael Moore in the southpaw stance. I mean, you've seen a lot of southpaw fighters, especially in the last couple of decades, but it is extremely unusual to see a southpaw heavyweight. Only 2 southpaws in history have ever fought for the heavyweight title, Dan. And I was talking to people, a lot of people have been around the sport longer than I have, asked them who is the best southpaw heavyweight of all time. There's never been one as a champion. And they said they really had no idea. It turns out a lot of people picked Michael Moore, of all things, as the best southpaw heavyweight ever. Hard to believe.
For those of you that were wondering the answer to that trivia question, the 2 southpaws were Carl Mildenberger and Richard Dunn, both of whom fought Muhammad Ali.
Both got knocked out.
Yes. Always a problem when a southpaw fights a right-handed fighter about their lead feet stepping on one another.
Get off.
We've already seen it a couple times with these two.
We talked about the aggressiveness from the beginning. You see the respect that both men have for each other. I really expected Michael Moore to come out quicker. But he is defensive-minded, as we talked about. There he
a good right-hand counter from Bone Crusher.
But Michael did lean back from it.
That one was blocked by Moore's glove, but look at the, there's some power when Bone Crusher is throwing these punches.
Get off.
There's nothing like being at ringside when the big guys fight. The audio when the punches land is so noticeably different from when the smaller guys are in there. That's more of a pawing jab from Moore.
Exactly right. It's like a measuring jab, and that really is a shame because Michael Moore, when he snaps that right jab, has a tremendous right hand. He is a natural right-hander in most things, and you would expect him to have big power in the right hand, as a hook or as a jab.
The Bone Crusher's power is right there with that right hand. Oh, a good counterpunch by Moore coming back.
Didn't land flush, but it forced Bone Crusher to hang on.
Michael Moore still very dry. He was not warmed up to the point where he was perspiring freely, and even now, with under a minute left in the first round, still has not really broken a sweat.
You see Michael Moore holding his hands up well. You might say, well, gee, that's George Benton and Lou Doolittle. His new trainers have taught him to do that. That's really not the case. Good right hook there by Michael, just missed again. That's not really the case. Michael has always held his hands up well. The problem is he didn't move his head, so people could put the right hand right down the pipe and hurt him. He's been hurt a number of times. He's been down, as we said, 3 times in the last 3 fights, most notably to Bert Cooper.
Get out of here.
He's just got to find a way to make people miss that right hand, to get his head out of the way.
Well, there was a concern that maybe Bone Crusher would choose to fight with the same strategy that he used against Mike Tyson, where he hung on. Not the case. He came to fight today.
Bell.
Now listen, you have to get up first on the guy. Don't wait for him to hit you. Use your jab. Use your jab. I know you're seeing what to do, but
okay. You're thinking good out.
Here we go for the start of round number 2. This bout is scheduled for 10. Michael Moore on the left in the black trunks. Bone Crusher wearing the red with the white trim. Of course, Bone Crusher, one of the more recognizable figures in the heavyweight ranks. He's been on the scene for a long time. And one of the most likable people in boxing.
We talked about Michael Moore trying to become the first southpaw heavyweight of all time. Bone Crusher Smith, because when he won a share of the WBA heavyweight, when he won a share of the heavyweight title, the WBA share, was the first fighter heavyweight champion who was a college graduate.
And his right hand, when it lands, whether it be on the glove or the arm of Michael Moore, is rocking Moore back. Bone Crusher's right arm is still a formidable weapon, Alex.
The question, Dan, is, I mean, as fighters get older, they can't pull the trigger. Remember Larry Holmes, who had such a good right cross. Just seeing opportunities with Michael Spinks, not being able to let his hands go, and that's something to watch for. The power's no good if he can't land it. There, he let it go, but he was way out of range. And Michael Moore moved backwards well.
All right, both of you step back. Both of you step back.
You hear Frank Cappuccino, our referee, instructing the two fighters. Moore has shown a tendency to be on the road. He likes to fight inside. He normally isn't in that heavyweight's power range. Now he's trying to operate a little bit outside of it, a different look for Moore.
Yeah, and this is, I don't know whether this is just respect for Bone Crusher's power or whether this is an attempt to work on the defensive skills that Michael's been learning from George Benton and Lou Duve in the gym.
Good movement by Smith and evading a blow. Well, you have to think, if you're Michael Moore, that the longer this fight goes, certainly the odds are going to begin to tilt heavily in your favor. There's a good right hand by Smith.
And Michael walked right into it. But it had no effect.
But it won't be, you know, I can't see where it's a great strategy for Moore to just pace himself like this. Misses badly with the left.
Come on, step back.
Michael Moore relinquished his WBO title earlier this month so that he could be rated by the other organizations and get a shot at a Lewis or a Bowe.
You know, Dan, the reason for that is when you're rated, when you're the champion of one of the crazy organizations that have jurisdiction in this sport, you can't be rated by the other ones. So Michael Moore had a share of the WBO, the least of the four sanctioning bodies. He could not be rated by the others. Now he is rated, and rated very highly, number 2 by the WBA.
End of the second, a pretty even fight.
Now.
All right. Keep the jab going.
Snap that jab.
Good defense.
With you
come on, get out of there.
That was a strong second round for Bone Crusher, Alex. I gave it to him on my scorecard.
Yeah, really not a lot of meaningful blows landed by either man. They've been two, I think, tough rounds to score. No fireworks at all yet. And that really is a surprise. I mean, I thought Bone Crusher would come out throwing bombs away, figuring his best chance. He's going to be 40 years old in a couple of months, figuring his best chance was the low blow there. And Bone Crusher, you know, the referee doesn't even say stop. Bone Crusher just stopped on his own. Gentleman James, but allowing Michael a chance to recover.
Let him go, Bone. You're holding him, Bone. Let him out. Break.
There is George Benton in the lower left. He is Michael Moore's trainer, and this is the first fight. And there is a real low blow, and Moore is hurt.
Now, that did hurt him, man. What's the matter with you?
Frank Cappuccino asked the Bone Crusher what's wrong with him. He might
what's wrong with you?
What's wrong with him?
Wrong corner, Frank. Here's the other guy's the one you ought to be asking, what's wrong with you?
You all right? It won't happen again.
Oh, easy for you to say.
Let's go, let's go.
Well, the crowd upset about that, and the fighters touched gloves.
We were seeing George Benton in the inside.
Oh, good uppercut by Moore. And maybe this woke Michael Moore up. That uppercut split the gloves of Bone Crusher.
Be interesting to see how much Michael Moore has learned about this sport, whether he comes back and lands an equalizer below the belt on Bone Crusher.
We want to remind our ABC stations down the line.
Break.
George Benton, this is his first fight with Michael Moore after Moore's longtime association with the Kronk Gym and Emmanuel Stewart.
And after the second round, George told Michael Moore to go inside, that he doesn't want to fight with you on the inside.
You're holding me, man.
And that uppercut that Michael landed on the inside was the best punch of the fight so far. We should point out, Dan, that there were no points deducted from Bone Crusher Smith for the low blow. I think if he lands another one, I think Frank will take a point away. Frank Cappuccino, the referee.
Cappuccino would walk to the judges at the conclusion of the round, between rounds, and telling them if he indeed wants a point deducted. Couple uppercuts by Moore miss. You see connected with that left, and look at these two go. And Bone Crusher takes a couple flush shots from Moore.
And he's getting the worst of it.
This is a Donnybrook.
All right, let him out, come on. You got to stop holding, man.
We'll return after a word from our ABC station. Don't go anywhere.
Gary, while they've gone to a break, I mean, that was tremendous to see them trading blows. Do you think that's what Moore's got to do to win this?
Well, Michael Moore has been doing the right thing so far. Bone Crusher Smith's a much bigger and stronger man. So he's stayed on him for 2 rounds, hoping that the most heavyweights tire towards the end of the third. So he should start tiring now, and now should be the time for Michael Moore to step up and start matching him with heavy blows.
You gonna do that again for me?
Tremendous action.
Remember Bone Crusher Smith, one thing was not, there was that low blow. It was a very, very low blow and deliberate as well. And coming from Bone Crusher Smith, that must have hurt.
But I would expect him to tire, being the older man by some 14 years, and I would expect Moorer to just step it up now.
Yeah, well, no, that should be the case, but what we must not forget is that Bone Crusher Smith is a puncher, and punchers should be respected at all times. If Michael Moorer now makes the assessment that the danger's gone, he's in trouble.
All right, let's go back to Dan Dilf and Alex Waller.
The fourth round from Atlantic City, and you have to like the way number 3 ended. Almost another low blow by Bone Crusher. The last 30 or 40 seconds of round number 3, Alex, were furious.
Yeah, I mean, Michael Moore really asserted himself for the first time. There were exchanges, but Michael clearly got the better of the exchanges, and Bone Crusher looks still the worse for wear. We should point out about the low blows, Dan. I think one thing that Bone Crusher Smith has learned in his 13 years as a pro, and he learned it very late, is that he cannot stand straight up and get leverage. He finds that when he bends down, he's able to get much better power in his punches, and I think that was what he was trying to do with that body shot. He bent quite low, and the punch went low.
Anything you do athletically with your knees locked, you take away the biggest muscles of your body, which are the muscles in your upper leg, so it holds true in boxing as well. A little more cautious first minute of the fourth round by these two. Bone Crusher wearing the red. Michael Moore 30-0 in the black trucks with the white trim. As of right now, it doesn't look like either one of these two eager to get right back into the way they finished. This is a deep breathing session by the two.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would question why Michael Moore didn't come out, having hurt Bone Crusher Smith in round 3, why he doesn't come out and jump on him. Michael is very deliberate. He is very patient. Some people think he's plotting. I mean, that he just doesn't have enough fun.
Oh, good right hand. Boy, and he snuck it over the left of Bone Crusher and landed flush on the jaw.
Yeah, do not put out a lazy left hand when you're fighting Michael Moore. He's a southpaw. His right hand is right there to hit you with, and he will punish you for that mistake.
Bone Crusher's jab doesn't appear to have the snap that it had in the first round or two. Very feints with the left and comes back with the right lead.
Come on.
Yeah, that's really been Bone Crusher's history as a fighter. His punches tend to lose their snap the longer he goes. He really has to pace himself. He has never been able to maintain a very consistent work rate.
Well, that's tough enough when you're fighting someone your own age. Here you're fighting a man who's 14 years younger than you are.
I still don't like Michael Moorer measuring with that jab. I mean, he just has a beautiful jab. He may get away with it against Bone Crusher. He's not going to get away with it when he moves up and challenges at the highest levels of this division.
Here comes the end of round 4. A reminder, we're scheduled for 10. Welcome back to ringside here in Atlantic City. This is the 5th round, and it has been a good performance by both Moorer and Smith here on our Quaker State Boxing Series. Michael Moorer, his punches here in the 4th and the 5th round have become sharper. Bone Crushers have probably deteriorated somewhat. Left to the body by Moorer.
Except for some fireworks in round 3, Dan, it really has been a fight that has not had meaningful action. Very few meaningful punches. Good right half uppercut in there by Michael Moorer. You know, you have to remember that Bone Crusher Smith, that left cross.
Saw that left rock the head of Smith back.
That Bone Crusher sometimes gets intimidated by his own admission. He was intimidated against Michael Tyson, another hard-punching young Mike.
And turned in a performance that ranks with one of the worst in heavyweight boxing history.
Right, and he said, I was definitely intimidated. And you wonder, having been hit a few times like with that left hand, whether he is in a survival mode right now, where he's just thinking about surviving this and not about winning it.
Well, the devil's advocate question would be, does Michael Moorer hit with the same intensity that Mike Tyson hits? And that's certainly, you can get a lot of discussion on it, but for a man who has not been a heavyweight for very long, you'll find an awful lot of people that will tell you he is the most powerful puncher in the heavyweight division.
Yeah, as long as Mike Tyson's in jail.
Yeah.
You have to remember also, Bone Crusher in his last fight against Greg Page, never noted for any power. He was down and hurt badly at round 1. And it is interesting that Michael has not been able to take advantage of the one time, did not take advantage well of the one time he did have him hurt.
Left just flicked. Still, it's a very cautious approach by Michael Moorer.
Let him go, let him go, let him out.
Just doesn't give you the impression of a man who lets his hands go freely, Alex.
And yet, Dan, when he gets into that mode, when he senses that the time is right, we talked about him being very patient. There, good right jab.
Good jab, good jab.
He's very, very patient. When he lets your hands go, he'll make you totally forget this kind of mechanical performance.
There's another good jab, and he is starting to get the mark. You saw it the last time he scored with a double left, one to the ribs and then another one up top. Michael Moorer, an accurate puncher, beginning to find the range here at the end of the 5th round on Bone Crusher Smith. We'll be right back.
Hey, red corner, blue corner, come on, come on.
Welcome back to Atlantic City. Dan Deerdorf, Alex Swallow with you at ringside. The 6th round just beginning of a scheduled 10-round heavyweight fight between undefeated Michael Moorer in the black trunks, Bone Crusher Smith in the red, and Michael Moorer, the up-and-coming undefeated heavyweight, trying to earn his way to the fight, and a good left hand by Moorer.
George Benton told him in the corner, let that left cross go, and he did it that time and connected well.
Moorer beginning to land with much more accuracy and consistency. Bone Crusher had success in the first 2 rounds by throwing the big right, but we've seen very little of it since. Ooh, there's a good right hand that splits the gloves, but Moore rocks his head back and takes little of it.
Yeah, the first real effort that Bone Crusher's made in any kind of offensive way in several rounds.
Use those hands. Use that jab. Come on, use that hand. Two hands. Two hands. Come on, use the hands.
Come on, let him go. Let him out. Come on. Come on. Come on.
Two hands. Two hands. That's a jab. Push.
Little pity pat jabs by Bone Crusher, and then just a pathetic sweeping left. Nothing on it at all.
Well, Bone Crusher is pretty straightforward in talking about that George Foreman is his idol, that he's I guess, in love with the fact that George has made a comeback and has made millions of dollars. There's a good right hand by Smith. And he says, why can't I get a piece of that? He says, I'd love to fight George Foreman.
One reason is because you can't win fights without throwing punches. Bone Crusher knows that. He's smart enough to know that. He should be. He also should be smart enough to remember the lesson he learned in the Tyson fight. He grabbed and grabbed and grabbed for 11 and a half rounds, and then with 8 seconds left in the fight, he threw a punch, a right hand that put Tyson on Queer Street, and you just had to think what might have been had he thrown punches, if you forgive the cliched expression, after the Tyson career, with bad intentions. He just is not doing that. Now he goes southpaw for a second, then he goes back orthodox.
If he really wanted to build up a lofty record, he should have learned another thing from George Foreman, and that's who you fight. George Foreman would never fight Michael Moore. That's correct.
But George, I mean, Bone Crusher does not have the unbelievable magnetic appeal that George Foreman has developed for himself. Bone Crusher feigning.
A big man, 245 pounds, 6'3.5" is Bone Crusher Smith. Michael Moore looks much smaller because he is 6'2", 218. This is the end of round number 6.
Let's go. Come on, Ray. Come on, Lou. Come on, Louie.
Welcome back to our Quaker State Boxing Series here in Atlantic City. The 7th round just underway. The last 3 or 4 rounds after a strong beginning by Bone Crusher Smith have been, I think, won handily by young Mr. Moore.
Yeah, Michael might have won every round. I gave him Bone Crusher the second just by a hair. Oh, another low punch.
That was very close. Here comes Frank Cappuccino with another warning.
Let's go.
That's doing Michael Moore a precious little good.
Get out. Break.
Really no meaningful punching, Dan.
Pawing jabs by both fighters.
With 2 huge men, 2 powerful men. Michael Moore in the black trunks. There's a
good right hand.
You just had to expect more fireworks in this. That was
another
blocked.
Right hand.
I think that was blocked.
But at least it was thrown.
Right.
All right, break. Step back.
And right now, I would assume, never having fought at 39 years old, that Bone Crusher Smith must be feeling every year of that rather advanced pugilistic age. I would. And of course you, Alex, having not yet attained 39, certainly would know the feeling.
No, but I've never attained 245 pounds either. You can give me some idea of that feeling.
Working in the corner of Bone Crusher Smith is Emil Griffith, one of the great fighters of all time. 5-time world champion and one of the fine people associated with this sport.
And Emil had gone through some tough medical problems recently. It's great to see him back and looking terrific.
All right, break. Step back.
Good left hand to the body by Moore, who just doesn't seem to have had a plan. That left swept by.
Well, I mean, from Michael's point of view, Dan, you have to say his plan might have been to win without taking chances against a guy whose power he respects. I think the guy who doesn't have a plan really is Bone Crusher. I mean, he's the guy who just is losing round after round after round and not seeming to exert his will in any great way to reverse that trend.
Again, to the body goes Michael Moore. We're going to stay in between rounds. This fight's scheduled for 10. Another left hand by Smith gets down low. And let's listen in over in Michael Moore's corner.
Mike, you loose a little bit now. Put these down. Hold up there, Judge. Okay. On my left glove. Good. Spread that on. On my left glove, then.
See, we're holding that left claw's back. You don't feel like you hit him on the chin with it? Okay, just do yourself a favor. Stick him. As soon as you touch him, just fire it. As long as you're up close, fire it. Just aim and fire it. You'll hit him. Because he slowed down. Just fire it now. But just watch your balance. Be sure you know what you're doing. Just stick him and fire it.
Let's jump across the ring to Bone Crusher's corner.
Make him fight with you. Make him punch with you. You got to make him punch with you. 2 hands. Keep your balance. Keep your balance. Keep your balance. Come on.
Here's the low blow, Dan, in that round. You see it right there. It's tough to hit Bone Crusher for that one because they were tied up, and you can make a case that when you're in a clinch like that, he was being pulled down by Moore and maybe should not have been penalized there. You know something? Michael Moore says he doesn't listen to his corner. You heard George Bennett say, let it go. Just touch him once with the right jab and let it go. Just fire it. He did exactly that, and it landed.
He again can't seem to stop from pawing with that jab. Rather than snapping a jab, which is always a fighter's best weapon and a great way to set everything else up. It's just a reaching out, touchy-glovey jab. Touchy-glovey, you like that?
No, actually, I didn't.
Yes. When you didn't respond, I assumed you did.
I mean, the frustration is, if you're a fan of Michael Moore's, or if you're George Benton or Lou Doom in this corner, the frustration is that when he throws the left, he lands it. You heard George Benton ask him, well, you just don't think you can hit him with the left? And Michael said no. And George said, all right, do yourself a favor. Fire out the right a couple times. As soon as it's out there, boom, cross with the left. When he did it, he landed. There, he tried it again.
Well, Michael Moore certainly is his own man in the sense that he senses what is right and what is wrong and is not much for taking other people's instruction. He feels that he has an idea. There's a good flurry by Moore. He's a bright, articulate young man, and his course is going to be his course and no one else's.
Except he says that, but you saw here the first time working with George Benton and Lou Doom in the corner that he did listen to what they said and try to execute it. He just hasn't done it enough. You don't know whether he's trying to incorporate these new defensive skills or whether he just doesn't want to take chances against Bone Crusher Smith and his big reputation as a puncher.
Well, we may still be seeing the effects, Alex, of those big right hands. There's another good left hand by Smith in the first couple of rounds.
Yeah, we also might be seeing the effect of those right hands that Burt Cooper landed on him in their fight in Atlantic City last year, May 15th, when Michael was down in the first round, badly hurt, down in the third round. Yes, he came back to score a sensational knockout in the fifth, but he may remember that a guy like Burt Cooper, who many people feel is just a blown-up cruiserweight, had him down, and what happens if I get hit by this big monster at 245 pounds?
In Burt Cooper's defense, you have to say that he did land good, legitimate, heavy shots on Moore, and that the same Burt Cooper that gave Evander Holyfield all he wanted.
Right, but you have to remember also, if you're a cynical, tough-minded boxing person, that was an Evander Holyfield that a lot of people still considered a blown-up light heavyweight.
Here we come to the end of the 8th round. We've got a couple to go.
Last second all the time, but don't do that. You gotta hit him first, baby. Keep hitting him first. You can hit me, can you? Go.
Well, Bone Crusher's corner gave him one piece of advice. It was you can rest all next week. You have 2 rounds left. This is not the time to do it. We begin the 9th round here on our Quaker State Boxing Series on our Wide World of Sports programming, and this is scheduled for an even 10. Another right right hand by Bone Crusher, at least letting it go at left hand score.
I have to remember one thing. We talked about the Cooper fight, which was in May of
Last year.
Since that time, Michael Moore has only had one very brief 2-round fight in 10 months since then, and he just looks rusty also. I mean, it may be, just a number of factors which may be combining. We've already talked about safety first attitude. We've talked about trying to be defensive minded, and that may be another factor. It's just inactivity, just ring rust.
And if this fight runs its course, it'll also be 31-0, and a W is a W is a W.
That's right, but we haven't really learned a lot about Michael in this fight. Other than the fact that he's not a guy who's knockout crazy. He's a guy who's win crazy and may in fact be, in this circumstance at least, a safety first fighter.
I just know one thing for sure, Alex. He'll never be the fighter he could be unless he really decides he's going to turn his jab into a real weapon.
It has been in the past, Dan. I mean, he is the kind of guy who has shown a lot of evidence, all the way up from the amateurs, of having a sharp right jab. Yeah, you saw him snap it twice there. He could puff Bone Crusher Smith's eyes up with that jab. Look, there it was.
There's a good combination, and 2 jabs, and then the left land.
See if he continues with it. Bone Crusher's not letting him. Bone Crusher is doing a full wrestling grip. There's the good jab. There's another punch he just tried there, Dan, that I'd love to see him use more. Michael Moore, we're talking about on the left in the black trunks, and that's the right hook to the body. The right hand is right there.
That's another one.
He could get it under the elbow of the opponent, and I mean, he's done it at times in the past, but I think if he did it more, he'd be even more devastating, and it would make the head more available for his punches up top.
As we get ready for the final round, the 10th round, we'll stay here at ringside and tune into the 2 corners.
9 rounds and an unbelievably little amount of meaneful punches.
Okay. Now listen. Oh shit! Don't worry about it. Forget about it. Forget about it. Damn this.
Water bottle.
Yeah, give me the water bottle. Don't worry about your left hand. It's right there now. Should be you got the one hand. Break it all.
This last round, baby. Last round.
Now hit it with jab, hit it with that hook. You hear what I'm saying?
Fight. You in condition. Fight. Fight the man. You hear me? Hey, you hear what I'm saying?
Yeah. Last round, baby.
Well, do it then.
Hey, Jimmy, look. See the guy sitting there? He's got Lewis. You knock this guy out. Make him think of what you did in England.
There's Bone Crusher's jab, and there's the left cross by Michael Moore that backed Bone Crusher Smith out in round 9.
Looked like Bone Crusher almost lost his mouthpiece.
Another angle. There's the jab, and there's the left cross. Bone Crusher had to fight to keep that mouthpiece in. That's right, Dan.
This is the 10th and final round between these 2 heavyweights.
And you saw Bone Crusher touch gloves. I mean, it was pathetic, Dan. You have to wonder if this is not the final round of his career. And if you admire this guy as much as everybody in boxing does, you have to hope so. He can fight on. He can make a few paydays. He'll never be able to fight for the world title again and win a share of it as he did with a first-round knockout against Tim Witherspoon.
And the good news is that you're not looking at a man who's in financial difficulty. He's got a successful real estate business. He is a college graduate. His wife is a lawyer with a practice back in North Carolina. It's a feel-good kind of story about Bone Crusher Smith. So weep not for him.
Michael, let him out, Michael.
And for Michael Moore, Alex, wouldn't you agree the sky's the limit with this kid? I mean,
yeah, I mean, as we said, this is kind of an inconclusive fight.
Right?
I mean,
but he will fight for a title. I don't think there's any question that sooner or later he will get a title shot.
Yeah, and Dan, the interesting thing is that he is rated number 2 by the WBA right now. Good left hand there by Michael Moore. Tony Tucker, the man who's rated number 1, is fighting Lennox Lewis in May in London. That means that Michael Moore, as soon as that fight takes place in May, will be rated #1 in the WBA. And it also means that by November 13th, the rules say that there's a mandatory defense in the heavyweight division, the WBA rules, every 12 months. Riddick Bowe won the heavyweight championship from Evander Holyfield on November 13th last year. He has to defend it against the mandatory challenger in 1 year, and that, as of May 8th, will be Michael Moorer. And that certainly is a fight to look forward to.
All right, Frank, step back, fellas. Come on.
Let's go.
Inside the final minute here of the final round.
Now, Riddick Bowe doesn't have to fight him. He can choose to give up the WBA title, as he did the WBC title, to avoid fighting Lennox Lewis. He still will keep the IBF share of the title.
And he is keeping track of a rather large bank account as well.
Oh, solid left.
Break, step back.
Well, James Bone Crusher Smith was telling us accurately when he said, I've worked hard for this fight. From a conditioning standpoint, he has stayed right in there. That was a good right hand.
Yeah, Michael Moorer bailed out and wobbly a little bit. I think that was a case of their feet getting tangled up. They both have huge feet. Bone Crusher size 15, Moorer size 14.
Well, I don't think many people thought that it would go to a decision, but it has.
All right, Frank, step back.
And some of the crowd boos.
And I think they have a right to boo. It really was, in terms of action, a disappointing fight game.
We'll be back to Atlantic City for the decision right after this. Welcome back to Atlantic City. Right now, let's go up to ring announcer Ed Darian.
Casino Hotel here in Atlantic City, New Jersey. We've got the scoring. And here it goes. Judge Vinnie Rainoni observed 98-92, while Judge Eugene Grant, he scored it 99-91, and Judge Al DeVito, he had it 98-93 for the winner by unanimous decision and still undefeated, Michael Moorer.
So Michael Moorer goes to 31-0, still undefeated, his 9th win as a heavyweight, and right now Alex Wallow is with Michael up in ringside.
Michael Sr. and Michael Jr., who wants to take over the announcing duties. Michael, first of all, congratulations on the win. There were times when you seemed like you were ready to really take over the fight, and yet you backed off at times and just took your time and paced yourself.
Well, James, he was a survivor. So what I wanted to do is just, George and Lewis told me just to work on my boxing and my defense and things like that. So that's what I did. He's a veteran, and I wasn't going to try to be careless and take him out or anything like that.
What do you see as your future, Michael? How soon? You probably will be rated #1 in the WBA. As soon as Tucker fights Lewis in May, you'll be the mandatory for Bowe. Is that what you're looking for?
Well, it'll have to be up to Lou and Georgie to see what would happen. I just have to thank God that I got through it, and James is a tough guy. He's a survivor. I want to say hi to everyone back in Monessen. I know they wanted to hear that.
Michael, congratulations. We want to take one time to say hello to Bone Crusher. James, you've been around a long time. You lost this fight. I know everybody's been saying it's the last hurrah a million times for you. What are you going to do? Is there a future for you in boxing?
I'm going to rest. I'm not cutting anything. I'm still pretty. Not Muhammad Ali, but I'm pretty. But I'm going back home and help spend some time with my family and think about it and build my Prime America business, big to the team. And we're going to think about it. We're going to play some golf next week, and we're going to have a little good time, take some time off. I hadn't fought in 8 months, and this kid is 25 years old. I didn't start fighting until I was 28, so.
Thank you, James.
Crowd there didn't like it. We enjoyed it. I thought it was a good learning fight for Moorer.
It was a good fight for Michael Moorer because he's on the verge of challenging for the heavyweight title, and he has come from light heavyweight division, and he needed to fight somebody who could take all his punches, who would present a threat to him, but not too much of a threat. And Bone Crusher Smith did all that. And Michael Moorer, he boxed well, he kept it all under control. We've seen how easy it is to make the mistake of beating Bone Crusher before the fight's finished, But he kept himself together, and he showed the maturity of somebody that I believe will be the one to take the title off either possibly Lennox Lewis or even Riddick Bowe, because he's a genuinely very good heavyweight.
Talked about control. They kind of lost control at the end of the third round. They started to tear it off there. That that was the sort of major piece of excitement in the fight here. It was the end of the third.
Yeah. Well, I always thought that Bone Crusher would try for 3 rounds where he'd be at his most dangerous, and towards the end of the third he thought he'd have a go, and they started swinging. But what Moorer did say, hey, well listen, I'm not running, I'm here to fight, don't think you can terrorise me. And he had it with him, you know, which really just dejected Bone Crusher after that, and Bone Crusher decided that, hey, listen, well, maybe I'll just try and go the distance this time.
I mean, that would have taken a lot out of him at 39 years of age. I mean, he realised he couldn't do that every round and last the distance, which he knew he might have to do.
So, well, he's had his little fling there, and you see soon after that he was easing up, and we watched, he sort of like strolled back to the corner, and from there on in he went on a defensive type tactics in a similar way he did to Mike Tyson, which made it hard work for Moorer.
A key point for me is the fact that as he's got Duva and Bent in his corner, for the first time, it's important he's getting new instructions to put to practice what they're teaching him, because they're going to teach him a lot of new things. That's a good partnership.
And I think the Lou Duva and George Benton, they're I think currently must be one of the best teams in boxing. And you can hear by some of the instructions that George Benton he talks to the fighter.
That's right.
In the fighter's language, and he leaves it open for the fighter to make judgments on the things that he says, and then the fighter will see them for himself and actually do them, and that's the best way.
We've got an example of that, because towards the end of the fight, I think this is round 9, all we saw Moorer doing was pouring the jab out and then trying to knock him with the left hand. But we might think there's something wrong with his left hand. He might have been hurt.
Yeah, it sounded as if he said something that might be matter, but when he went out, he still used it as normal. So, but that's possible, you know. But all he had to do at that stage was to keep the man at bay at his distance with his jab and look for a shot, because he didn't have to get careless, you know. He wanted the workout, because he's going to be fighting guys that size with that sort of reach, and like giving 3.5 stone advantage. It was a perfect learning fight for him.
If Tyson and him ever get together, I think that will be fireworks like we've never seen before. That'll be one to look forward to.
That will be one of the real classics, wouldn't it?
Absolutely right. Now, from one big puncher to another, and after the break, a chance to look at one of the names of the super middleweight division, Roy Jones Jr. Stay with us for that.